I walked out of the notary's office with the biggest smile on my face. You know that tired, shaky kind of happiness, when you feel like you've just finished a long, painful race? That was me. The pen had just slipped out of my fingers a few minutes earlier, after I signed what my husband kept calling our future. He held my hand, kissed my cheek and whispered, "Trust me. This is just a formality. Everything we're doing is for us." Plus, those two words sounded so peaceful in that moment. I remember the smell of the office, old paper, coffee, and that faint lemon cleaning product. The notary, a serious man with glasses, had walked us through the documents. My husband, Mark, kept answering confidently, like he'd done this 100 times before. I felt a bit lost, but I didn't want to look stupid. He had told me for weeks that we needed to protect the house and organize things properly, just in case anything ever happened. "You know how complicated the system is," he said. "If we don't set it up now, it could be a mess later. I just want you to be safe." Funny word looking back. So I signed. I signed because I loved him, because he was my husband, because for the last 8 years, I had tried to believe that we were on the same team. When we stepped outside, the sunlight hit my face and I actually laughed. "It's finally done," I said. "We're officially adults now." He smiled back, that soft, practiced smile of his. "Yeah," he said. "We are." We were standing on the sidewalk, just a few meters away from the notary building. Cars passed, people walked by, and I felt proud. Proud that we had just made an important decision together. Mark's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen and his eyes flickered for a second. "Just my mom," he said quickly. "I'll call her back in a second." We started walking toward the parking lot. I was talking about what we'd cook that night, how we should celebrate, maybe get some dessert on the way home. I was planning out a quiet evening for the two of us. He nodded at the right moment, said, "Yeah, sounds good," and unlocked the car. I left something inside. I suddenly remembered. My water bottle. I think I left it in the waiting room. Mark shrugged. "Okay, I'll wait here. Go grab it." I turned around and walked back toward the glass door of the notary office. Still smiling. Still excited. Still thinking I had just taken a big step into a secure life with my husband. I had no idea that in the next few minutes, I would hear the words that would destroy that feeling completely. Because as I walked away from the car, I heard his phone ring again. He didn't wait this time. He answered. And I heard my name. I heard the word house. I heard the word plan. And then I heard my husband talk about me like I was just an obstacle. I wasn't trying to listen. I really wasn't. The notary office door had a heavy metal frame, and when it closed behind me, the sound outside turned into a muted hum. I realized I'd left my water bottle on the small table beside the magazines, grabbed it, and turned back toward the exit almost immediately. It couldn't have been more than a minute. When I stepped back outside, I stopped for a moment near the door. Mark was leaning against the car, his back halfway turned toward me, phone pressed to his ear. I heard his voice. Serious. Low. No fake sweetness. "No, Mom, it's done," he said. "She signed everything." Froze. I don't know why I stayed still. Maybe it was the way he said it, not we signed. "She signed everything." I was about to call out his name when his mother's voice came through the phone, louder than I expected. He had it on speaker. "Good," she said with that cold, sharp tone I knew too well. "So the house is safe now. It's in your name only, right?" My heart dropped. The house. In his name only. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I don't think I even blinked. Mark laughed quietly and said, "Yeah. She thinks it's just a legal protection. She has no idea." No idea. His mother continued. "Perfect. If anything happens between you two, she walks out with nothing. She'll have to start from zero. That's what she gets for acting so independent." Independent. She always said that word like it was an insult. My fingers squeezed around the water bottle so tightly it crumpled a little. Mark replied, "Relax, Mom. I've got it under control. I told her it's about protecting her. She's so trusting. She didn't even ask for a second opinion. He sounded proud. Proud of tricking me. His mother chuckled. That's good. You need to think about your future, your blood. You can't let some woman walk off with everything you've worked for. Some woman. I wasn't your wife. I wasn't the woman who supported you when you had nothing. I was some woman. The words felt like a slap. My mind started racing. What did I just sign? What exactly did we do in that office? Why did he say, in your name only? I took a step backward, my shoes scraping the sidewalk. I was terrified he would see me, terrified he would stop talking, terrified that somehow this moment would vanish and everyone would act like it never happened. Then I heard him say the part that made my stomach twist. If she ever tries to leave, he said calmly, almost lazily, she'll realize she has nowhere to go. No house, no savings in her name. She'll come running back or she'll be forced to start from nothing. His mother answered. Exactly. A woman needs to know her place. You did the right thing, Mark. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run at him and tear that phone out of his hand. But I didn't. I just stood there, my body shaking, my throat tight. I realized something in that moment. The person who had slept beside me for 8 years had just turned me into a strategy. Not a partner. Not an equal. Pawn. My happy walk out of the notary office had just transformed into something else entirely. I wasn't walking into a secure future. I was walking into their trap. And the worst part, they truly believed I would never find out. They thought I would stay blind forever. I stepped back inside the building silently, pretending I had forgotten something again. I needed a second to breathe. A second to think. A second not to fall apart right there on the sidewalk. My heart was pounding so loud I could feel it in my ears. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. I was beyond tears. I was in that strange place where everything suddenly feels unreal. Had my whole marriage been like this? How many times had Mark talked about me like that? With his mother, with his friends, with whoever else. I sat down on one of the chairs in the hallway and stared at the floor. All the small moments started coming back. Little comments from his mom. Don't forget, this house is really from our side of the family. You're lucky my son is so generous with you. We've worked hard for this. You just entered the story later. I always brushed it off, told myself she was just traditional, just protective. I thought Mark didn't agree with her. He always said, just ignore her. You know how she gets. Did I know how he really was? Suddenly a thought hit me. The notary. The documents. The way Mark had talked faster whenever I asked a question. Don't worry about the details, honey, he had said. It's standard. Trust me. Trust me. Those words felt dirty in my mind now. I stood up slowly and walked back to the notary's door. I knocked gently and peeked in. The notary was still at his desk, sorting through papers. He looked up surprised. Excuse me, I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. Can I ask you something? About the documents we just signed? He adjusted his glasses and nodded. Of course. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to sound calm. The property agreement, I said. Whose name is on the house now? He frowned slightly, like the question was strange. Your husband's, he replied. As you both requested. You signed a document transferring your share completely to him. It was clearly stated. Completely. Transferring my share completely. The words felt like the floor had opened beneath me. I swallowed hard. And that means, if something happens between us, I have no legal ownership? The notary hesitated, studying my face. Well, legally the property belongs solely to him now, yes. Unless there's another contract somewhere else that says otherwise. But the document you signed transferred your rights. I nodded slowly. It was like someone was reading my own betrayal story back to me, line by line. Is there any way to reverse it? I whispered. He shook his head. Only if your husband agrees to sign another transfer. Or if you can prove the signature was obtained under manipulation or fraud, but that would require legal action. Fraud. Manipulation. I thought of his mother's voice. She has no idea. I thought of his words. She'll have to start from zero. I straightened up and forced a small, polite smile. Thank you, I said. That's all. When I left his office again, I didn't walk out happy this time. I walked out with a strange kind of clarity. They had played their move. They thought the game was over. But something inside me, something I didn't even know was there, lit up at that moment. I realized something important. If they could have a secret plan, so could I. Mark looked up as I walked back toward the car. He quickly ended the call, his face sliding back into that familiar loving husband expression. There you are, he said lightly. Took you a while. Did you lose the bottle or move in with the notary? Forced a laugh. No, just had a small question for him. His eyes narrowed slightly, just for a split second. What kind of question? I shrugged casually. Just something about how long the documents take to be fully processed. You know me, I worry about every little detail. He relaxed and smiled again. Always overthinking, he said, kissing my forehead. You don't need to worry about anything. I've got it all under control. Oh, I knew. I knew he thought he had everything under control. I slid into the passenger seat. My mind was on fire. My body was on autopilot. On the drive home, he talked about maybe going out for dinner, maybe calling some friends to celebrate. He told me how this step was important because, in his words, you never know what life brings. Better to keep everything simple in one name, so it's not a legal nightmare. He listened. He nodded. Played my role. But inside something had snapped. I replayed every sacrifice I had made for him. When he lost his first job and I covered all the bills. When I postponed my own plans so he could focus on his career. When we put my savings into renovating that house. Our house, as I used to call it. A house. I couldn't even say that in my head now without feeling sick. We pulled up in front of the house, and I looked at it differently. The front door, the little garden, the windows I had cleaned 1,000 times. It all felt stolen. Not by a stranger, but by the man who shared my bed. That evening I didn't fight. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead I did something else. I watched. I listened. Paid attention. He poured us wine. He was extra affectionate, almost too affectionate. He cooked dinner, joked around, turned on our favorite show. At one point he said, "You know, today really made me feel like we're set. Like no matter what happens, we're secure." He loved that word when he needed it. I looked at him quietly and asked, "And what if, one day I don't want to stay?" He laughed and leaned back in his chair. "Why would you even say that? You're stuck with me, woman. There's no going back." He meant it as a joke. I heard it as a warning. Later that night when he fell asleep, I stayed awake. I stared at the ceiling and realized I had two choices. Option 1. Cry, be broken, and accept the new reality he created for me. Option 2. Pretend nothing happened. And use the time I had to create my own plan. Chose option 2. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I did something I had never done before. I opened his drawer where he kept documents and found copies of the property papers, insurance papers, and a folder with numbers I had never seen. I took photos of everything. Every document, every contract, every paper with a signature. Then I sat down with my laptop and started searching. Not for how to forgive, not for how to save the marriage. For how to not be destroyed by it. That was the morning I stopped being naive. That was the morning I stopped being just his wife. That was the morning I quietly became his biggest problem. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my friends. Not my family. Not even my reflection in the mirror. Because I knew how it would sound. Are you sure you heard him right? Maybe you misunderstood. He's your husband, he wouldn't do that. But the notary had confirmed it. The documents had confirmed it. His own words to his mother had confirmed it. I wasn't imagining anything. So instead of crying to someone, I decided to prepare. Step 1. Information. I booked a consultation with a lawyer. Secretly. I told Mark I was meeting an old friend from work. The lawyer was a calm-looking woman in her 40s. She listened silently as I explained everything. I told her about the phone call I overheard, the way he had convinced me to sign, the way he transferred the house into his name only. When I finished, she looked at me for a long moment and said, "You're not the first woman to sit here with this story." My chest tightened. "So there's nothing I can do?" She shook her head. "I didn't say that." She explained that while the documents were legally binding, there were still things I could do to protect myself. We talked about financial separation, personal accounts, digital proof, and how to calmly gather evidence of manipulation and intent, especially his conversation with his mother if I could get it again. "Don't confront him," she warned. "Not yet. If you explode, he'll switch into defense mode and start covering his tracks. You need him to feel safe and careless a little longer." I walked out of her office with something I hadn't felt in days. A small, burning seed of hope. Step 2. My own safety net. I opened a separate bank account in my own name. I stopped putting my full salary into the shared account and quietly rerouted part of it into the new one. I started going through our shared online accounts, bills, mortgage history, transfers I hadn't paid attention to before, and I documented everything. Every time Mark talked to his mother, I listened more carefully. I noticed how she asked questions that didn't sound like a loving parent asking about our life. Did she sign that thing? Is she still completely trusting? She doesn't suspect anything, right? Sometimes I wanted to walk into the room and say, "I suspect everything now." But I didn't. Step 3. Their own voices. One evening, Mark went out for drinks with a colleague. I knew he was actually going to see his mother. He had accidentally left the chat open on the computer once. So I did something I never thought I would do. I turned on the voice recorder on his tablet and slipped it into his jacket pocket when he came home to change before leaving. "Looking good," I teased, straightening his collar. "Don't flirt too much." He laughed. "You're the only one for me," he said. 10 years ago that line would have melted me. Now it just made my stomach turn. When he left, my hands were sweating. Either this would give me what I needed, or I was crossing a line for nothing. He came back late, smelled faintly of his mother's strong perfume and restaurant food. He kissed my cheek and fell asleep quickly. While he snored softly, I quietly pulled the tablet from his jacket and pressed play. I will never forget what I heard. His mother's voice. "So, now that the house is locked under your name, what's the next step?" His voice. "I just need a little more time," he said. "She still thinks we're planning a second property together. I'll convince her to invest more of her savings. Once that's done, if she tries something, she's finished." His mother. "She should be grateful you're even keeping her around. Women need to understand who gives them stability. If she ever disrespects you, you'll show her who really owns everything." Who really owns everything. It was all there. Their greed, their plan, their complete lack of respect for me as a human being, not just a convenient wallet and maid. I saved the recording. I backed it up in 3 places. I sent 1 copy to my lawyer. Step 4. My own counterattack. We built our marriage on the idea that we were a team. But now I understood the truth. He had quietly changed teams and joined his mother's. So I switched to join mine. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to wait. And when the time was right, I was going to walk out of his trap and leave him inside it. Few weeks passed. From the outside, our life looked normal. We had breakfast together. We watched shows at night. We even went to his mother's house for dinner twice. She smiled at me like I was some stray cat they were feeding out of pity. She said things like, "You're lucky Mark is so responsible with money. Not every man protects his assets so well." I smiled back and replied, "Yes, I'm learning a lot from him. Especially how to plan for the future." She didn't realize how true that was. My lawyer and I prepared quietly. She guided me on what was important. Make sure you have proof of your financial contributions over the years. Keep calm and avoid dramatic fights that could be used against you. Secure a place to go if you need to leave quickly. And most of all, let them talk. Let them keep underestimating you. So I did. I found a small apartment through a friend. Not in my name at first. I arranged it so I could move my things slowly, piece by piece, without anyone noticing. A box of my favorite books for storage. A suitcase of clothes for a short trip. Some personal documents, for safety reasons. Every time Mark said, "You don't need to worry, everything's safe here," I smiled, knowing that more and more of my life was no longer inside his walls. Then one evening he made his move. The one that told me it was time for mine. We were sitting at the table when he casually said, "You know, I've been thinking, maybe we should put more money into investments. That savings you've been keeping on the side. It would work better if we combined it with ours." Even now, I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" He smiled in that condescending way. "I mean, we should put everything together. No need to have separate accounts. We're married. It's all shared, right?" I remembered his words to his mother. "Once that's done, if she tries something, she's finished." He reached out and squeezed my hand. "It's better if I manage it. You know I'm better with these things." I looked at him for a long moment and asked, "Why are you so worried about everything being in your control?" He laughed. "I'm not worried. I'm just practical." But I saw the flash of something in his eyes. Impatience. Greed. That night I texted my lawyer. "I think it's time." She called me back and we went over everything one more time. She had already prepared documents. She already had the recordings. She already understood the pattern. Manipulation, financial control, intentional deception. "The next step," she said, "is up to you. Do you want to confront him first or serve him papers first?" Thought about it. I thought about all the times I had swallowed my feelings. All the times I had stayed silent. All the times I had chosen peace over truth. "I want him to understand exactly why," I said slowly. "I want him to sit there and hear his own words. I want him to know I'm not leaving because I'm weak. I'm leaving because I finally see him clearly." She nodded. "Then we'll do it your way." The plan was simple. Secure my belongings. Finalize the rental in my name. Keep my own money safe. And then, when everything was ready, I would press play. Not on a movie. Not on a show. On the recording. The one where he and his mother described how they wanted to leave me with nothing. They thought they had written the ending to my story. They thought it would end with me begging. But they were wrong. I was about to write my own ending. And they were going to watch it unfold in real time. Chose a Sunday. He wasn't working. His mother was coming over for lunch. Her idea, of course. "Family lunch," she said. "We should celebrate the new documents. It's so important to set things straight legally." I almost laughed when he told me. They really had no idea. Cooked like I always did. Set the table like I always did. Smiled like I always did. But this time I had one extra thing on the table. My tablet. When his mother arrived, she kissed Mark on the cheek and gave me a polite, distant nod. She inspected the house like she always did, like she was checking that their investment was being maintained properly. We sat down at the table. They started talking about random things, work, politics, weather. Then she said, "So, everything with the notary is complete now, right? That must feel good, knowing everything is in the right hands." I put my fork down slowly. "Yes," I said calmly. "It feels clarifying." Mark glanced at me. "Babe, you okay? You seem a little off." I took a deep breath. This was it. "I've been thinking a lot," I said. "About trust. About marriage. About plans that people make without telling the other person." His mother stiffened. Mark forced a laugh. "What are you talking about?" I reached over, tapped the tablet, and pressed play. First there was silence. Then his mother's voice filled the room. "So, now that the house is locked under your name, what's the next step?" Mark's face went white. He looked at the tablet, then at me. What is this? His voice on the recording continued, clear as day. I just need a little more time. She still thinks we're planning a second property together. I'll convince her to invest more of her savings. Once that's done, if she tries something, she's finished. His mother's recorded laugh followed. She should be grateful you're even keeping her around. Women need to understand who gives them stability. If she ever disrespects you, you'll show her who really owns everything. The real mother-in-law in front of me started breathing faster. Turn that off, she snapped. This is... You have no right. I looked straight at her. I don't. I asked quietly. I don't have a right to hear what you both think about me. To know that the house I cleaned, paid for, and built with him was being taken away behind my back. Mark reached out trying to grab the tablet, but I pulled it closer. Don't, I said. My voice sounded different even to me. Steady. Cold. That's not what it sounds like, he started. We were just talking about worst-case scenarios. You're taking it out of context. Really? Said. Should I play the rest? The part where you said, she has no idea. She's so trusting. She didn't even ask for a second opinion. Or the part where your mom said, some woman like her should start from zero if she leaves. His mother slammed her hand on the table. This is disrespectful, she snapped. How dare you record private conversations? You're the one who's not loyal. You're spying on your own husband. I stared at her for a moment, then smiled sadly. Loyal? I repeated. You mean like the loyalty you showed when you called me some woman, while planning how to take everything I had? Mark tried another angle. Okay, fine, he said, raising his hands. I shouldn't have said those things. It was just talk. My mom worries too much. But you know I love you. We were never actually going to do anything to hurt you. I leaned back in my chair and studied him. It was almost impressive, how fast he could switch to charm. The notary confirmed everything, I said quietly. The house is completely in your name. You told him that's what we both wanted. He swallowed hard. Look, it's just practical. I handled the paperwork. You know how you get anxious with this stuff. I didn't want to stress you. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. I am anxious. Especially now that I know the man I sleep next to is perfectly comfortable planning how to leave me with nothing. He reached out like he wanted to touch my hand, but I moved it away. Listen, he said, his voice softer. We can fix this. We can change the documents. I'll put your name back. You don't have to make this a big drama. His mother glared at him. Mark, she hissed. Don't start giving in now. She's just emotional. She'll calm down and forget. I stood up slowly. They both went silent. I'm not emotional, I said. I'm done. I walked to the sideboard, opened the drawer, and pulled out a folder. These, I said, placing the folder on the table, are copies of all the documents. Records of my financial contributions. The recording you just heard has already been sent to my lawyer and backed up. And this. I took a final envelope out and placed it in front of Mark. Is the beginning of our legal separation. His face collapsed. You're leaving. He nodded. Yes. And this time you don't get to control the narrative. I'm not the naive woman who signed away everything without a question anymore. I'm the woman who finally realized what you are. He stared at me, speechless. His mother opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. You were right about one thing, I said, looking straight at her. A woman does need to understand who gives her stability. And I've realized something. Took a breath. It's not you. It's not your son. It's me. Then I picked up my keys, my bag, and the tablet. And I walked out. This time, I didn't walk out of a notary's office smiling blindly. I walked out of their house, fully awake. When I left that day, I didn't take furniture. I didn't fight over plates or curtains or who bought the TV. All I took was my clothes, my personal things, my documents, and my self-respect. For a while it hurt. I won't pretend I was suddenly free and happy. There were nights I lay awake in that small apartment I'd rented and thought, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have given him another chance. Then I would remember his words. She has no idea. She'll have to start from zero. She'll be finished. And I realized something important. He had never seen me as a partner. He had always seen me as something that could be controlled, reduced, and replaced if needed. Our separation process wasn't easy. He tried to twist the story. He messaged me things like, "You're breaking the family. Look what your paranoia is doing. My mom is heartbroken." But I had the truth. I had proof. I had a lawyer who wasn't fooled by his sudden victim act. He tried to argue that transferring the house was a mutual idea. My lawyer presented the pattern of behavior, the secret recordings, and evidence of my long-term contributions. Suddenly, his confident tone changed. He started offering solutions. "We can put your name back on the house if you cancel all this," he said one day on the phone. "We don't need lawyers. We can fix this between us." But I had finally learned the difference between a promise and a pattern. His pattern was clear. "I don't want the house on those terms," I said. "You didn't protect us. You tried to trap me. I'm not walking back into that." In the end, he was forced to negotiate. The evidence was too solid. His mother's words, his own plans, my documented contributions, it all painted a very clear picture. I didn't get everything back. Life isn't a perfect movie with a clean, miraculous ending. But I got enough to start over. Legally, financially, emotionally. And one day, as I was signing some final documents at my lawyer's office, she said something that stayed with me. "You know," she said, "the most powerful thing you did wasn't gathering proof. It was deciding you deserved better than someone who saw you as an asset, not a person." On the way home, I walked past people who had no idea what battle I'd just come out of. I passed couples holding hands and wondered how many of them were truly on the same team. I thought about that day at the Notary. The happiness I had felt. The way the sunlight had seemed so bright. And then I thought about the second time I walked out of a building, not with a fake smile but with a real sense of who I was. I didn't walk out with a big house under my name. I didn't walk out with a perfect, shiny story to tell at family dinners. I walked out with something he could never own, never transfer, never sign away. My ability to say, "No, I'm not going to live in a life you engineered to keep me small." Looking back now, I don't tell this story because I want people to hate my husband or his mother. I tell it because I want people, especially women, to understand something very simple but very important. Love does not mean closing your eyes. Trust does not mean handing over your future without a question. It's easy to feel guilty for doubting the people closest to you. We're told that real love means blind faith. But here's what I learned. Real love doesn't need blindness. Real love doesn't need tricks, traps, or secret calls outside the notary's office. Real love doesn't say, "She has no idea." Real love says, "She knows everything, and I still choose to be honest." My story started with me walking out of a notary's office happy, thinking I had just protected my future with the man I loved. Then it turned into a nightmare moment, overhearing his secret plan with his mother. But it didn't end there. Because sometimes, the moment you discover someone's betrayal is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of the part where you finally write it yourself. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to this to remember, it's this. Ask questions even when you're scared of the answers. Don't sign away your life just because someone says, "Trust me." And when people show you that they don't see your value, believe them. You don't have to stay where you are only protected, as long as you're obedient. You don't have to play the role they wrote for you. You're allowed to walk out, even if it means starting over. You're allowed to rebuild from zero. You're allowed to say, "I would rather have less with my dignity than more in a cage." My husband thought his plan would leave me with nothing. But here's the truth. The day I left his house, I didn't walk out empty. I walked out with my voice. I walked out with my clarity. I walked out with the lesson that love without respect isn't love, it's control. And that lesson, That's worth more than any house. Because now, if I ever walk into another notary office with someone new by my side, I won't be the woman smiling blindly. I'll be the woman who reads every line, asks every question, and never ever lets someone write her out of her own story again.